It is the top of the hour. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Joy Dalton, and it is an honor to be your host for this webinar today, focusing on optimizing cultural capital in career and education planning and persistence. I joined Shimley last year as an instructional development coach because I am deeply passionate about empowering and preparing the next generation of students for greatness. In my role, I've had the privilege of working with educators and students to enhance their skills and knowledge, ensuring that they are well equipped to succeed in today's rapidly evolving world. Today, we are here to explore how cultural capital plays a crucial role in shaping career and education planning and how we can optimize it to enhance student persistence and success. I'm excited to dive into this topic with our esteemed speakers and all of you today. So, let's see, can I advance? Thank you. So, who is Sheminly? For those of you who may not know who we are, we're dedicated to teaching future-ready skills that empower students to pursue excellence. Our team includes expert educators from around the globe who bring diverse perspectives and innovating teaching methods to the classroom. We are more than just educators. We believe in transporting students to other parts of the world, exposing them to new cultures, new ways of thinking. This immersive experience not only broadens their horizon, but also teaches them new ways of solving problems and approaching challenges. Our goal is to integrate life essential skills into the classroom, bridging and dividing between traditional academic and 21st century learners. We aim to promote student resilience and increase career readiness for personal and professional success. So today, it truly is an honor for me to introduce to you our esteemed guests. Today, we have with us, and if I could go to the next screen, we have Dr. Hall. Dr. Hall, she has over 15 years of experience in career services in higher education with a PhD in family and consumer science education, highlighted by her previous directorship at Trinity University. She also is certified as a career services provider and financial education instructor. Currently, she is the project director for NSF-funded research study at Texas State University that examines the impact of community culture wealth on women of color in computing. My apologies, my allergies. We also have with us another esteemed guest, Dr. Cootie. She is combining in a PhD in electrical sciences with expertise in data analytics. She advances research and teaching at Texas State University, leveraging proficiency in programming and statistical analysis. As a quantitative lead for NSF Career Project, she investigates the impact of community culture wealth in STEM plus C education, aiming to improve STEM engagement amongst underrepresented groups. Welcome, 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 ladies. So, why should we collaborate, or why should you collaborate with Shimmerly, and what is that all about? Shimmerly provides lifelong learning platforms for both educators and for students. Our collaborative engagements with educators pave the way for education systems that foster life skills education. As part of our commitment to fostering a dynamic learning community, Shimmerly, we eagerly partner with like-minded professionals who share our passion for life skills education. It is our great honor to feature our guest speakers today. Today's collaboration with our experts brings focus on how cultural capital impacts the development of life skills and the relevant curriculum. So I will now turn it over to our experts.
All right, good morning. So I'm excited to be here with Dr. Kuti and just to share a little bit about some of the work that we've been doing with cultural capital and how it applies to life skills and just career and education planning in general. But before we get started with that, we would like to know a little bit about who we're talking to so that we can sort of tailor some of our message to the areas that are being represented. So if you could just take a few moments in the chat and answer a couple of these questions. So we have 3 of them in total. Where are you viewing from? So you can interpret that how you'd like to. I'm viewing it from my kitchen. I'm viewing it from Texas. I'm viewing it from whatever country that you might be viewing it from. But if you could start adding those into the chat. And then also, like, what is your position? So we can know, are we talking to educators? Are we talking to school administrators? Are we talking to consultants, admissions counselors? Who are we speaking with this morning? And then the last one, in your current role, do you provide life skills learning experiences to students? All right, I'm seeing some, okay, yeah. Educators. I'll give you a few moments to go ahead and fill those responses in the chat. Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for participating. It looks like the several responses that we've gotten so far are educators, yes, in different areas of education. So that's helpful. And we've already heard that we got people from all over the world, from various different countries. And so that's awesome as well. Okay, cool. I won't spend a whole lot more time on that because we do want to make sure that we get into the rest of the presentation. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit briefly about what our learning objectives are for today. So our learning objectives are to identify the 7 forms of cultural capital. We want to explain how cultural capital impacts life skills development work, the work that you do with your students that's focused in that area. And then in addition to that, we also want to help you understand how cultural capital can inform life skills curriculum development. And by doing these 3 learning objectives or catering to these 3 learning objectives, we want to start broad and then go narrow. So broadly, we're going to talk about this as a life skill, and then we're going to talk about cultural capital, about how it connects to these life skills. When you first think about life skills in terms of career and education planning, it may be kind of broad in terms of how can that be connected to life skills as we're trying to inform our students and prepare them for their transition into adulthood, to thrive in adulthood. And so these are 2 concepts that I think are really important to be able to understand. The first one is career adaptability. And now career adaptability is the knowledge and skills and abilities that foster flexibility and successful adjustment to vocational challenges, nuances, uncertainties, and so forth. Essentially, these would be skills like information literacy. So I'm able to know how to look up information and then evaluate whether the source is credible and whether the information is credible before I then decide this is the information that I'm going to use. So making sure that people understand how to look up information and how to evaluate the quality of that information is a valuable skill in being able to first research the different types of careers that the students may want to go into, and then also identify people who work in those fields that they may want to do informational interviews with, or that they may want to solicit as mentors to help guide them through the very process that those individuals themselves did. And then also the ability to self-advocate is a life skill that's really important to career adaptability. And so my ability to stand up for myself and say, you know what, I'm very interested in going into psychology. Do you know anything about what pathways I may need to go in, what sort of courses I should be taking now as a student to prepare me for that pathway? So being able to advocate for themselves is a really powerful skill in their ability to adapt to transitions changes and uncertainties that they may encounter now as students and even as they transition into the wonderful world of work. And then the term that's related to that, or a concept that's related to career adaptability, is adaptive career behavior. So whereas career adaptability focuses more on knowledge, skills, and abilities, adaptive career behavior focuses more on the action, the behaviors that individuals actually take. And so it's proactively or reactively used to guide career and education planning. So anytime you see CEP, I'm referencing career and education planning and development in the context of career self-management across the lifestyle. So as adolescents, as emerging adults, as mature adults, as senior adults, like all the different things at the different stages of life that you experience, if you learn these behaviors early as an adolescent and as an emerging adult, these are the types of adaptive behaviors that you can also use throughout your lifetime. And so some examples of what I mean when I say adaptive career behavior is maintaining an up-to-date resume and LinkedIn profile, attending networking events to make sure you're constantly building your network of contacts, and learning new information that may help you decide what things you want to do for your education goals and what things you want to do for your career goals. So those are the types of behaviors that contribute to a person being able to be adaptive when they're entering into the world of work. So building on that, we'll talk a little bit about about community cultural wealth. So let me go ahead and progress to that slide. Okay. So as we talk about career and community cultural wealth, there are 7 different forms in the modified community cultural wealth. So the first, 6 that you see are the initial ones from Yoso. And this reference will be provided at the end of the presentation as well. But Yoso basically cemented this concept of community cultural wealth. And these first 7 are the forms of cultural capital that she demonstrated and communicated as something that's valuable to individuals beyond the standard forms of capital that people typically think of. So when people typically think of capital, they have this idea of something that is very tangible, something that is very black and white and absolute. Whereas these are saying cultural capital is also extremely valuable to the decision-making experiences of adolescents and adults. And so what we're saying is there are these aspirational, familial, linguistic, navigational, resistant, social, and then Ashford Hansard added spiritual as well to this, that help these young people persist in their decision making. So when they make decisions to pursue a particular major or go into a particular course or discipline of study, these are some of the things that influence them to make that decision, but also helps them to sustain their momentum going forward through that. All of the challenges that they may experience, all of the barriers that they may encounter are diminished, or they are able to overcome those because of these forms of cultural capital. Some of them may be more influential than others. And so that's what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes, is what are these different forms of cultural capital and how they are impacting students and how they're impacting young adults as they're making decisions for their career and education planning. So now I'll turn it over to Dr. Kuti to help kick us off in exploring a little bit deeper into what these 7 forms of cultural capital mean.
Thank you, Dr. House. So let me begin with aspirational capital. So aspirations and how they relate to the ability to endure, basically the resiliency. So if we talk about aspirational capital, it helps us to hold on to our dreams in order to improve our quality of life. And even when times are tough, it helps us with that grit, gives us resilience. It also means that we bounce back from hardship and move forward towards a better standard of living. It essentially is the foundation of success. So Yoso's cultural wealth model shows us that aspirations may be related to your career or STEM plus C interests. They are key to succeeding in your career and then achieving financial stability in the process. It also helps us to understand that we provide support to everyone in building a community. And especially as educators and leaders, it is important for us to build a world where everyone has the chance to improve their lives and then reach their highest potential. So for the NSF-funded study that both of us are a part of, we interviewed women of color in order to understand the effect of community cultural wealth on their enrollment and persistence in STEM education, specifically in computing education. So what we have done here is we have included some of the quotes from those interview transcripts. So here, one of the participants talks about their goal to help make healthcare a fair place by improving on, by working on removing racial bias from the medical AI systems. And therefore, the positive thinking and planning for the future is something that her aspirations are in this process.
The next form of cultural capital is familial capital. And this is essentially immediate and extended family members, or even, especially in particular, are the collective cultures, communities with shared interests and values. So these are the aunties and the uncles and the moms and pops and nanas that are not necessarily blood relatives, but they are invested in the decisions that the students you serve are making, and they're contributing and influencing those decisions. And they're providing the fortitude that these young people need to press forward as they're making these decisions and sticking to these decisions, or as they face different challenges, pivoting and being able to shift to make a different decision that will still be positive in their trajectory towards whatever pathway they're going into. And so as we look at the familial capital, one of the young ladies responded in these interviews that we conducted, and she was basically talking about her parents and how both of them were really involved, and how she just felt their affection, and she felt supported, so that even if she felt safe in making her decisions and taking risk, knowing that she would still be embraced and supported by her family. It's really important for these students to recognize and to be able to articulate these forms of support, because then they'll be able to continually draw from them as they encounter other challenges and as they encounter other barriers across their life cycle. And so it was really cool to just see how she was pulling on this kind of mantra that her family invested in her, that you can do whatever you put your mind to, and that like this is just something that you can do, and that it allows for a secure future and it's higher paying, particularly with the pathway that she was choosing. And so this is one of the reasons why we really value helping students recognize the cultural capital that is informing their decision making, because it's going to be something that positively influences them as they continue making different decisions and crossroads where they have to make such decisions.
So the next form of cultural capital is linguistic capital. It basically refers to communication skills or cultural competence that positively influences persistence. So to give you an example, coming from India and working in the US, I understand that we need to understand the cultural competence, understand different perspectives and support networks. So communication is a vital tool so that I can articulate my aspirations clearly and then have that formal versus informal communication style switch whenever required. Also, it is a great tool for conflict resolution by being able to express what you intend to say and basically build relationships and cultural sensitivity as a part of sustaining those relationships when you are working with cross-cultural individuals. The other important thing as it relates to career adaptability is when you know how to communicate effectively, even with different cultural contexts, that helps us to navigate through institutional systems in order to access the resources, in order to support persistence, and that is associated with the adaptability for your and flexibility as well. So one of the participants said a very interesting thing about code switching, and how that has been quite valuable to them in their different interactions. So particularly, she talks about when I have to resolve issues or say what she thinks that she needs to say, then she suggests that having that linguistic adaptability in the form of code switching is a significant aspect of her linguistic capital, and which helps her to build those effective relationships.
Yep. Another one that we highlight in our goal to empower individuals with understanding what sources of support that they have is navigational capital. And this is the ability to navigate or maneuver through institutional and structural barriers and systems to achieve academic and career success. This particular form of cultural capital is particularly interesting when talking about individuals who come from marginalized communities. And by marginalized communities, I mean the individuals who don't typically have a voice in developing policies and procedures, and not just not having a voice that informs those policies and procedures that also impact them, but this is also for those communities of individuals who decisions are made for them without consideration of them. And so how do we navigate a system that is not designed to accommodate the varying needs of international students? How do we navigate a system that is not designed to support racially or ethnically marginalized communities? How do these young people navigate a system that is designed for middle class individuals and not from those who come from lower socioeconomic statuses or individuals who have disabilities? And so we're trying to encourage these students to be strong self-advocates as they are navigating the different experiences that are part of their career and education planning journey, by encouraging them to recognize that there are strategies that they can take. And so as we're looking at navigational capital, we're recognizing that some things are already instilled in these young people that allows them to be able to navigate or maneuver through barriers and systemic challenges that they don't have the ability to, they didn't have the ability to design. And so what you're looking at here is a quote. It was a really long quote. It was a really rich quote, and we wanted to shorten it, but we realized that if we shortened it, it removed the context of this particular young lady. But what we loved about it is that she talked about having ADHD. And so you don't actually see that part because we did cut that part because we were like, we can verbalize that this particular young lady had ADHD. But she talked about how being a different learner was a challenge. It was a barrier that she experienced. And she says she's the type of person who learns by doing, but a lot of the professors that she was encountering in her program didn't do those types of things. They weren't going to sit down with you and show you how to code something together and see what happens and walk you through the process. So she found that a lot of it was her just figuring it out and then realizing, like, I'm going to get this done. So if I'm going to get it done, I have to figure out how to do it. And this, we felt, reflected navigational capital. This showed her ability to recognize a challenge, but to have the perseverance and the fortitude to push forward, and then being able to apply that same mindset to other challenges and barriers that she might experience throughout her planning process and throughout her education journey.
Okay, so continuing on the navigational capital, so I would like to continue on the same context of having practices or knowledge that individuals from marginalized communities use to challenge the inequalities and some kind of status quo or social norms. So in that context, we can talk about resistant capital as to how people who have the resistant capital develop a critical awareness, or you can say a consciousness of social injustices that they face, which actually empowers them to question these practices and challenge the status quo. Women of color or communities of color, for example, draw on their own cultural experiences, and then history is also a witness to that, that how resistance has been used to inform actions and strategies against inequalities. So one of the young ladies, what she said is, she gives an example of feeling out of place because she is the only woman in a male-dominated environment, that is a computer science class. So she talks about, even if that she feels like an outsider, she makes a conscious effort to be seen, to be acknowledged, and to sit in the front of the class, or while presenting, dressing up and making sure that people hear her voice, and just overcoming that invisibility which she has, maybe due to being the only female person in the class. So she talks about, I'm making sure that everyone is paying attention, that I'm also here, and that actually symbolizes empowerment. And then by ensuring that her presence is noted, she's not only challenging the norm, but she's establishing that she has that value in class and encouraging others also for a more, I would say, inclusive environment for everyone.
Awesome. Okay, this next one is social capital, and then we have one more to go. So with the social capital, this is probably the one that you all may be the most familiar with, right? Like
Yes.
Engagement and participation in social networks, providing resources or supports. This is when we're telling our students, hey, you need to get out there and talk to people if this is the pathway that you want to go into. If we're teaching you money management in terms of that life skills, then you need to identify people who are financial stewards, good financial stewards, and maybe have them mentor you or share some of the things that they're doing that allows them to be a good manager of their personal finances, right? But that's through social capital. Or if someone decides that they want to go into a particular career pathway, they want to be an archaeologist. Okay, well, you might want to connect with someone who does that, or someone who knows someone who does that, because that's going to get you a better idea of what is really involved in the education required to get to that pathway and to be successful in that type of pathway. And so this is where they might be part of different groups, organization, teams, cohorts, programs that just connects them to people that can help them make more informed decisions because they share their experiences and they share their resources and they share information. And so social capital is a really large one that is very commonly seen. And the beautiful thing about these 7 forms of cultural capital is that they overlap. And so a lot of times you'll see someone who may fit in a social capital framework, but they also are so close and so connected to the individual or to the student that they might also fit into familial capital. Or this may be a particular person who is an advocate for something, and so they fit for social capital, but they also have taught this person how to navigate through these systems of challenge. And so they might also be someone who helped inform their navigational capital. And so that's the beauty of the 7 forms of cultural capital, and recognizing these as resources and sources of supports for your students is because once you have these conversations with your students and you start helping them to identify which forms are most prevalent in their lives, they're able to see how to pull more from that as a source of support. And so this example that we have here is where she talked about she has a group that she joined when she was a first-year college student, and they have like little women of honor and big women of honor. And so they were connected to this individual. She connected with her, and she happened to be in the same major as her. And she loved that they had similar interests and that she was able to help her as a more senior student navigate the process of choosing courses and knowing when to do internships and what professors to take and which ones not to. And so this was something that was really valuable for her, connecting with a classmate through this particular student organization. And so this is also a very valuable way of being able to navigate the different challenges of education and career planning and being stronger in their adaptive career behaviors. This last one is spiritual capital, and this is the religious, ethical, or moral beliefs and values that support persistence and resilience. When we were doing these interviews with these young ladies, it was very interesting because some of them did reference religious connections and values that helped them feel like they were part of a greater purpose, feel like there was some sort of connectivity to directing their pathways. But then there were other individuals who were like, no, I don't necessarily feel like it's a higher power that's guiding and directing me. But I do believe that, you know, there are some moral values that I have about being a good person and contributing to society and making sure that the impact that I make is meaningful and powerful. And so spiritual capital is something that is inclusive of not just religious, but also those ethical and moral beliefs and values that drive a person to make certain decisions and then helps them to persevere as they're facing different sorts of challenges. So this particular person saw it from a religious framework, and she talked about how she developed a stronger relationship with God, and she decided that, you know, the power that she had through this higher being was something that directed her decisions and reinforced her decision making and her belief that the outcome would be successful. So these are the 7 forms of cultural capital. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kuti to talk a little bit more about how this connects to life skills.
So looking at the Schminley's 7 core life skills, they can be associated or integrated with the cultural capitals, the 7 forms of cultural capitals, since they complement and enrich these core life skills. So we could consider it as a framework to integrate cultural awareness into competencies for personal and professional development. So if we see the critical thinking, which is listed as the first core life skill for Schminley, I believe that it is associated with resistant capital in the way that you can use your own knowledge from your own experiences, and you can question and analyze social norms and power structures. And based on your critical thinking and applying that awareness of what these social structures are, you can also navigate through different systems, which is representative of navigational capital. Similarly, with global citizenship, I think this is the best forum to address that we are all connected here through social media platform, and we are trying to build a network which is helping us to understand and take action on maybe global issues, maybe what education in general needs to be, how life skills can be developed for students all over the world, is irrespective of the borders. And that also draws on your own personal motivation and aspirations to be mindful of different cultures and to embrace these diverse perspectives that come from all the different people. And then that is actually helping us to inform a more global outlook. For emotional intelligence, I think that this is my favorite, that having aspirations and personal motivations is not really enough when it comes to expressing your emotions. To understand yourself and then maybe able to express yourself in a very effective communication skill way in order to incorporate all those cultural contexts and your own emotions. Similarly, I believe that emotional intelligence is closely associated with your own belief system, your own morals. There are some intrinsic and inner resources that you have. Maybe you are a religious person, or maybe you're a spiritual person, or just a person who wants to do good and better for the society. So those could be used to understand and manage emotions and thus develop emotional intelligence. I think we have spoken a lot about adaptability, career adaptability, as well as self-awareness. So it stems from your own personal motivations and aspirations. You want to reflect on your own dreams and then apply that for maybe your own self-awareness or career adaptability, or how you want to incorporate those in your teachings. Similarly, adaptability is associated with your ability to change your own approach and behavior based on different social environments, navigate through those social environments. Therefore, I feel that aspirational capital and navigational capital are closely associated with self-awareness and adaptability. As Dr. Huff mentioned, teamwork and communication. So you utilize a community such as maybe Shiminli or a platform like this to build those relationships, to create a collaborative work environment and draw upon that social capital. Similarly, the term itself is communication. So communication skills, able to have those formal and informal communication skills, and then not have language as a barrier when it comes to teaching those life skills, or just providing an effective communication platform within the team. Creativity and innovation, I think this is my second favorite one, because and I associate it with resistant capital because you want to find new solutions to traditional problems. So you're not accepting the traditional approaches, and you're challenging those approaches basically to find out new solutions. So when you think about all these new inventions and innovations and AI and everything, the way the world is moving now, it is all about resistant capital, that how I can apply my creativity to develop those solutions to maybe systemic problems, or to any kind of traditional problems where you think that you need to apply the education which is relevant to the 21st century to the life skills education. And innovation is driven by your own aspirations. You do not want the current constraints or any kind of challenges to bog you down. You want to, lead to discovering those new ideas and then creating those innovations. In the end, we have motivation and exploration. So motivation is associated with your aspirations, to the desire that you have to achieve, and then you want to explore new opportunities as a part of those aspirations that you have. And also, while you are exploring, you do not know what you'll run into. So you will be navigating through different situations, different constraints, and would have to be very, thorough and resourceful, I would say, in mastering those new environments and navigating through those systems with perseverance. So what we thought was this mapping could maybe serve as a guide for curriculum developers or instructors or educators, in fact, so that these cultural assets that we have as a community can be incorporated into the teaching strategy. And then we could provide the life skills education as a more comprehensive approach by deriving from these 7 forms of cultural capital.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So now we have done a lot of talking for the last 40 minutes. And so what we would love to do is get some more feedback from you all. And so if you could look at this, oh, I'm sorry. That's you, Ruchi.
No, it's okay. So what we wanted to do was to make the session more interactive and try to understand out of these 7 forms of cultural capital, which one most impacts your life skills work or life skills development work that you are doing with your students. And we would like to invite you to record your responses through a poll. I believe the poll can be launched now.
There we go.
Yeah, it's there.
So if you'll just take the next couple of minutes to answer the poll, awesome.
Yes, we are having some responses in now.
Okay. Yeah, a few more seconds. Get a couple more responses. Okay. All right, I think we're good. Got about 50% response rate, so we are going to move on and discuss some of these responses. Is it visible to the group, the responses to the poll? Are attendees able to see the responses to the poll? Okay, not sure,
Yeah.
so I'll just
Yeah,
proceed.
we can see it. We can see
Okay.
it. I can
Okay.
see it. Put it that way. I'm sure
Okay.
everyone can see it.
Okay, thank you. I was like, okay, well, I'll just read them out then. Okay, awesome. Thanks. All right. So it looks like what we have is the majority of folks indicated that it was social capital. And then we also see a few people who said aspirational and familial capital. Not terribly surprising since as mentioned, social capital is something that's more commonly seen, whether it's their peers, their teachers, their coaches, different neighbors. Familial capital definitely is also something that's pretty valuable. And then aspirations, like those are often informed by interactions with social peers and with family members. And so that there's a lot of overlap with those three that are most commonly indicated on this particular poll. And so when we look at the discussion, we do want to have a little bit more. Oh, great. I see a hand raised. These are some of the questions that we want you all to think about as you're looking at the responses to the poll. And as we answer this question. So, Sanam, is that how we pronounce your name? Did you have a question? Okay, not seeing the response. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the first question that we have is which forms of cultural capital were most common among participants' responses? And as I mentioned, those were social capital first and then aspirational, followed by familial capital. So the next question that we have when we're talking about social, familial, and aspirational, my next question is, how can these forms of cultural capital be optimized to better prepare students for career and education planning and persistence? Now, we remember from the beginning that several of you indicated that you were educators. And so from your experiences working with students and from your experiences either integrating life skills, planning and workshops and lessons and curriculum components into the work that you do, how can these forms of cultural capital be optimized in that work so that your students are better prepared to make career and education planning decisions that benefit them and prepare them to thrive in the world of work? So feel free to unmute or to put your responses in the chat, but we would love to hear from you to give us a better idea of how you're seeing the connections between the work that you do and this understanding of cultural capital.
We have a comment in the chat.
Yeah.
Build social skills with team-based activities and tasks in the class. Yep.
Yep. Yes.
I think part of the beauty of the social capital and things like this is even helping them again have the language around it, because a lot of times when you're talking about students, when you talk about adolescents, there are things that happen around them that they're not fully cognizant of how that impacts their decision making, how that impacts them broadly. And so what I love most about the language of cultural capital is that it puts a name to something that then the students are able to say, okay, well, that's part of, familial capital. My family is empowering me and supportive. And so that's one of the biggest things that we like about the life skills and the connection to cultural capital is recognizing that there's language that these young people can use that then helps them to understand how they can pull on their network, their familial capital, their social capital, how they can recognize that their ability to adapt linguistically and culturally is something that can be adapted to their work in education and their work in career decision making. And so helping them to be able to see how translatable these experiences are to their career and education planning experiences. Yes, language and collaboration. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. Anything you wanted to add, Dr. Puthi?
So yeah, like you said, that having putting a name to that kind of capital that we have, it also helps us to understand that our cultural assets are valuable and they can be translated into our life skills education, and they are important. Like your family, your social network, your own moral beliefs, they play an important role in your life skills education, in your persistence and career planning as well. So yeah, I agree. Language and collaboration, building those social skills, and having, as you said, that doing that from a very young age can help them to navigate through the challenges which are yet to come, and being prepared to draw on their resistant capital and navigational capital to quickly switch to different alternatives or look at different perspectives, or just being very flexible in their approach of, if one door closes, then some window will open for you. And then yeah, so I think that is what is the beauty of those 7 forms of cultural capital. And like you said, that they overlap. So social skills are maybe overlapping directly with linguistic capital. You will be able to build those relationships and foster those connections only when you have strong communication skills and you make a conscious effort to build those relationships. Yeah,
I agree. Awesome. Well, the last slide that we have as part of the conversation is our references. And so these are the resources and the sources that we pulled a lot of the information from. And as we mentioned, Yoso, which is the last one at the bottom, is the one who kind of put together this model of cultural capital within her community cultural wealth framework. And then you'll see several other individuals who talk about the career adaptability concept that we talked about, and then also the adaptive career behaviors as very important life skills for students to gain now that will help them just navigate the different nuances of their professional lives and their educational journeys. And then also Ashford Hansard, she's the individual who added the 7th item of spiritual capital and has shown different ways that cultural capital works with marginalized communities, particularly those from racial and ethnically marginalized communities. So those are our references. And then if you have any questions or would like to connect to learn a little bit more information or to gather additional resources about cultural capital, please feel free to scan these QR codes, which will take you directly to our LinkedIn profiles. And feel free to reach out to connect with us as well. And that is all that we have for today. Any closing remarks?
We can take any questions now. Well, I would like to personally thank Dr. Hoff and Dr. Kuti for sharing with us how cultural capital impacts the development of life skills and the relevant curriculum. Your insights today have been incredibly valuable. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to all the participants for sharing your personal development time with us. As we conclude today's webinar, I'd like to remind everyone about our Life Skills Education Professional Development Program. This program is designed for educators who want to enhance their skills and integrating life skills into their curriculum. Our next session will be held from May the 13th to the 17th, and we would encourage all of you to register and join us for this transformative learning experience. If you have any questions or would like more information about our programs, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at collaborate@shimile.com. We are here to support you in empowering your students and advancing your career in education. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in our future sessions.